Okay, now we've done a lot of still life requests, and what I wanted to do was to kind of go over, because some people are talking about doing still lifes. They're stuck. They're like, oh, I don't quite know. My studio's not set up. You set something up, you take a photograph of it, and it's not, when you're painting alla prima, one of the things that you want to make sure is that you paint from life. Alla prima painting is painting from life, and it's a good exercise to paint alla prima or practice painting from life so that you can be good at painting outdoors, because that is ultimately the goal that we kind of want to get to. Not that that's the only kind of painting, but that's what's popular right now. What I want to do is I want to kind of show you how to set up your studio and be ready for that, because a lot of people are kind of missing the boat when it comes to trying to understand just how to set up a still life, what is a good composition for a still life, and try to make something actually work. So I want to kind of go through all of the discussions for that. So it'll be kind of a little slow process. But if you take the time out and get the tools, painting from life is a simple thing. But a lot of people don't really understand how to go about doing that. So there are a few toys that you need to buy or you need to be thinking about. And if you're set up in a studio, you want to be able to have your easel somewhere close to a table that you can move around. Now this is a sculpting table, and you can see it's on wheels, and it's also adjustable. So you can drop it down and pick it up, depending on if you're sitting or standing. And the great thing about this is that you can set it up pretty close to eye level. These are not cheap, and I'm going to put some of these materials on my website. It's stefanbaumann.com, and you can go there, and I'll have a listing of the different tools that we have, and tell you where you can get this particular table, plus the light and all that.
Also, the box is pretty good, the black box.
We're going to get to that. Okay. So having some kind of table like this, and all of this is high-end stuff. So having a table like this that moves around, that goes up and down, is handy. You could put that up on the wall. Now you need something that you actually set your still life up in. And the problem with just painting in your room is that you don't get intimate. It's really hard to set something up and you have all this air. So one of my students made this, and this is really awesome. And again, I'll have this on my website. And you could order one of these. But what this is the collapsible box. And it sets up like that. And what you want is a three-sided box, a bottom and two sides. And then you can set this up, that sits this way, depending on how you want to approach your still life. But what this is give you a real nice basic place that you can set this up. Now you don't necessarily need this. You can get a box and cut it apart. But the great thing about this is that it's collapsible. And you can put it away. Huh?
It's portable.
It's portable too. But you know, sometimes you get this thing where you are just excited about doing still lifes. So you'll do it for 6 months. And then you realize, I don't want to do still lifes for a while. And then you can put it away. The box always seems to be something that gets in the way. So this is really a great box for that. So I'll have information on my website for that. And then the next thing you need, and this is probably the most crucial, is having some light. And this is a professional photography lamp that they use to take photographs for ads. And so you can get these, and again, I'll put this up on my website. The particular brand, because I love this. This is a workhorse, and you guys see me haul it back and forth. It works really well. But what's great about it is that it's on a really good stand. And what's really crucial is this area of the light. It has these barn doors, and I'll show you why that's really important. But oftentimes people are unsuccessful with painting still lifes because they don't have a light. And this is not an inexpensive thing to have. And you could rig this up. You could rig it up with some of the lighting stuff that you buy for that are LEDs, and it has a little trumpet neck, but you can never really set it right. You have to set something up with books on it, and you're always trying to accommodate the still life and somehow. This is really great because you can go up and down.
This is small too.
Huh?
Small.
It's small too, but it's a halogen lamp and it's very, very strong. And you can buy filters for this. And it can soften or weaken the edge of the light so it doesn't appear really too bright. I am amazed that people who are professional still life painters don't have a light like this. You know, and it's really, it's an investment, and it will change your whole approach to painting, having one of these. So it's getting close to Christmas, or if it's your birthday. This is definitely something to ask for, professional light. And it's an adjustable in another way. And then it even has a little adjustment back here where you can fine tune the light on the object itself. So it's really an awesome thing. Yes?
Could you find something like that possibly on Amazon? Sometimes they have secondhand.
Amazon, eBay, Chris buys things on eBay. In fact, she collects them. I don't know if it's good to tell everybody that, then all of a sudden everybody's going to be getting them off of eBay and they won't be available anymore. So shh, don't tell anybody. She collects them because we're going to be doing some painting from life next year in this class. So we're going to get a bunch of these so that all of you can set up your little still lifes and paint in the classroom. So we've got a few things set up for next year that are going to be a lot of fun. We've got some workshops coming in, so if you go to my website, you'll see some workshops that we're putting together, outdoor workshops, and then we're going to be doing some stuff in classes. No, we're going to see if we can go back to Bear Valley. We'll have one in Shasta, but we'll have them around. So we're working on that. We'll be back on the air here shortly. Okay, so you have a box. You have a light. Now, the next thing is about how do you go about setting up a productive still life? It is really important in every painting that you do to have a center focal point. And the center focal point is the thing that the painting's about. So if you're painting onions and garlic, you want to choose one of those onions, one of those garlics as being a central focal point. But oftentimes, you don't know what to paint. You don't have a clue of what to paint. So what I recommend doing is a couple of things. One, I determine what I want the background to be. Okay, is it going to be a light background? Is it going to be a dark background? And one of the things that you can do once you have a box like this is go to any place that sells wallpaper and ask if they are discarding any wallpaper sample books. You know, they're usually about this big and there's a whole bunch of samples in there. And there you'll have every color, every texture, every form, all kinds of things. Japanese patterns, things. And it's good to have one of those in the studio so that you can adjust the backgrounds. When you have a box like this, and I've done this before, I've even painted the back of the box the color that I want, which is really cool because if I paint the background in yellow ochre, then I know exactly what color my background is on my painting. It's yellow ochre. So it's good to have exactly what you're going to paint in a still life be exactly what's in front of you. If you're going to paint a still life and you're putting it in this black, and then decide you're going to put a yellow background, that yellow background is going to affect everything in that still life. So if we have a black background like this, you can't adjust the background and make it up because that is crucial that the background be exactly what you want because all of those colors will reflect. I'm using just white today So imagine all of this having patterns and colors. It could be anything that you want, but just to simplify things. So I've gone down to my wallpaper store. I've asked for some samples, and let's just say that could be a paisley design of something. And I'll put in some, and these could be two different kinds of wallpaper patterns, or I might even just have a colored paper. Yeah, I will. You may have to set up there. So, but the great thing is it's on a swivel, so we could swivel for you too. Okay, so you can easily change the background just like that. And then, no still life would be complete without having some material. And this is a little piece, but you can imagine having all kinds of fancy doodads stuff. And here again too, it's all about design, eye magnets, and the material is great because you can kind of manipulate it. And you can let some of the tables show through. We want to get some eye magnets. Now it's crucial when you put together a still life that you have the light opposite the subject matter. Okay, so like if your main subject matter is over here, you want the light to come over here. And what's really crucial too is that the light come either from the left or the right. Not from the front and not straight down. One of the biggest mistakes that people do is that they will overlight like this. And what happens is that in a painting, when you have no shadows, the painting's not that interesting. In fact, the secret to a really good still life is 90 to 95% shadows and 10% light. Okay? Or 5% light. The less the light, the better the still life, because you get the contrast. So we're actually looking for shadows. You want this to come down to a point that's like at a 45-degree angle, or maybe a little bit further down. But it's a mistake to do this also. Okay? You don't want to uplight things. And the reason for that is because that's unnormal. It's unnormal to see things that are uplit. So like when you hold a flashlight under your thing when you're camping under your head and you walk around and go, ooh, it's like it's supposed to be scary looking because we don't see things like that. And naturally we don't see things like this. That's why working from flash photography is very poor. When you're working on photographs of any kind, you have to make sure that the flash is off. And naturally, light always comes from the sky or a light source that's usually a little higher than you are. So you want to make sure that the light source comes from the side and not from the front or from the top. And that way you can generate the most feeling of shadows. I'm going to simplify this. I'm using everything in white, so you can imagine what everything would be in color. Okay? Because we're not going to set up the perfect still life. I'm just showing you the process. I can't stand the pressure. Okay, so now the big question that I get from a lot of students is, how do you go about deciding to make a perfect still life? And what I usually suggest to do is to put your subject matter in the painting. Everything you got up here. So you empty out the kitchen cabinet and you stick everything up in there because you have no idea what possibility is. If I asked you to do a still life using 3 items, you would choose 3 items and try to adjust them. But those might not be the perfect items. And oftentimes when I've given you homework assignments, I will say, I want you to paint something from the bathroom and then add a kitchen utensil. And you'd say, well, why would you have a bathroom utensil? just because the objects themselves don't matter. It's what happens with them. You don't know when you first set up what is going to be interesting, but at this point there's endless possibilities. I have not a clue of what this will be. So I suggest to throw everything on and then spend a day or two taking a couple of things off, putting it on, saying I don't know, I don't want this, I don't want that, this, I'll change this way, maybe this, I like this cone, I can do this up this. You just take things out, put things in, simplify. You know, you move things around till you come up with ideas and you put things together that might not have worked otherwise, but become interesting shapes in the overall composition. And that's only part of it. While you are playing around with this whole process, you're going to be adjusting the light. And let's just take it down to a couple of objects here. Let's take out the obvious stuff. Make it simple. Let's take everything out here. And let's just say you got to a point where this is all you want. Okay? Now, what you want to do here, once you have your objects out here, let me get another shape here. Let's do something a little smaller. Upside down. That's too big. Let's see. This, and let's put a round object here. Okay. Then what you want to do is you want to start moving the light around till something happens with the shadow that's more interesting than the objects themselves. And so you see how this is picking up the shadow, okay? And then depending on how you get the light to work, you keep moving things around till something happens in the painting or in the setup that's more interesting than the pieces themselves. And oftentimes when you have glass, you'll have effects of light or something that becomes a little more dramatic. Even the shadow of the block there. And you move things around so that you can generate something that's interesting. Okay, so let's just say I like the lighting on this. And what's really crucial too now is that we want to dramatize the lighting to a bit. And this is where the barn doors come into play. And what we do is we tone the subject matter down to something that the light source now becomes more interesting than the objects themselves. We're just dealing with really simple shapes, but how those shapes cast shadows and how they accept light, that becomes much more interesting. What's even more crucial is that when we turn off the lights, we get a real dramatic image. And if you can remember how the original scene looked with all of that stuff on there, a successful painting,
Well, you can see the foreshadow, you can see.
it's about the effect of light.
That's beautiful.
And so you can, you know, and like I said, depending on the different objects that you have, the way that, but you've got to be more interested in the cast shadows than the objects. And you're looking for a variety of things, okay, like this and that. So anyway, so this would be how you would go about putting together a still life. And again, don't limit yourself because you could then add a few more. And this is why sometimes setting up a still life can be a 2 or 3 day process till you come up with things that are more dramatic. But you can see it's all about how light plays on things. And light is the crucial element in anything that you do, regardless if it's a portrait, landscape, or still life, no matter what you paint. And this is crucial even for carvers. You know, when you see a carving in a gift shop and it looks cheap, the people did nothing but carve the image. But yet you go to the museum and you'll see something that's still the thing, let's say a bear, and it looks exquisite because the old masters knew it wasn't about recreating the object, it was how the object would reflect light, how the planes would reflect light. And once you become fascinated with the effect of light, then you're truly at the place where you can start creating a wonderful still life. The options are unlimited. And if I ask you to paint something that doesn't seem exciting, which kind of was this homework assignment, okay? Some of you didn't do the homework assignment because you didn't find any challenge in it, and you thought, ugh, not one of those projects again. Kind of like the bag of potato chips. Okay?
You did potato
Yeah.
chips.
But the thing is, you've got to find something that's more exciting than the objects themselves. The objects become the thing. The objects become the thing that the light falls on. They're so secondary to the overall painting effect. It is about the light and what you do with it. And that's why having a light that is like this
Yeah, that's pretty good.
is crucial, because when you go back to turning everything on, it becomes about the project now. It becomes about the things. Okay? So, can you feel, just feeling the difference of having the lights on and off on that? Then turning this light off, it just becomes
That's
uninteresting. Lighting. So if you are determined to become a good painter, I know this is a reach to get something. It's about a $300 item. And like I said, there's a particular kind that I love, and I'll put it up on my website. And I have several websites, so this is stefanbaumann.com. I'll have Chris put a link on there so that you can definitely see the different kinds and where to get them, and you can get the model number, and then you guys can all fight on eBay to try to get them used. And she does pick them up on eBay sometimes for a pretty good price, like half off. But this is definitely something you want to put on your Christmas list. Okay? Yes?
Santa Claus is coming.
Santa Claus is coming.
If you brought that light down further, wouldn't you get more interesting shadows?
Yes. You could bring it down and you could get more interesting, but you have to still always have a certain feeling of it being reasonable. The only time that you can have a light going this way and pointing up, like this, okay, let's just say you're going to do something like this, you can get really dramatic. That's like this, you know, yeah, the thing is, light is rarely, I mean, even in a house, light is very rarely like that. It's very unnatural for us to see things that way. You can do that, but when you do, you have to tell the viewer what kind of light it is. And so if you're going to have the light come up from the table like that, it's usually because you have a candle or something which is uplighting things. That element actually has to be part of your composition. And then you can do that. Or it feels like it's that kind of light. That is something reasonable that the viewer understands. Remember, the viewer doesn't know anything. You're feeding them what you're trying to say. And if the viewer doesn't understand what you're trying to say, you're not communicating. And the underlying thing about art is communication. Art is about communicating clearly to the viewer in all mediums. If you're doing a ballet, it needs to communicate the story. A story needs to communicate to the viewer. The person reading it needs to know what they're watching. A painting needs to convey exactly what you were after. And if you're going to adjust anything that is unhuman to make an interesting composition, then you're going to have to tell or justify to the viewer what it is that you've done to it. Otherwise, they'll look at it and go, something's wrong. That's why a painting of a portrait done from a photograph with a flash will always be wrong. because we don't look at people with lights on our faces. It's like those camp lights that you have. It's very unnatural. Now you look at a photograph and you go, yeah, but this is a really good photograph. You know, it's like really good. There's an element of exception that we have when we look at a photograph. We already accept that it's a photograph and it has flash on it. So we kind of allow that. But when it's translated into a painting, which is the old traditional method, it doesn't read right. It doesn't read right. So, any questions?